Hey guys, Tarke here, and welcome to the first of my Puncture Deadeye diary series. My goal is to upload one of these every single day around about the same time, 7 PM UK, talking over the immediate things of the build, what I currently like, what I currently dislike, my short-term and long-term goals. And my hopes with that is, one, people playing along with this build, which is quite a few of you now, you'll have a better time progressing along. People playing their own builds in SSF will get an idea of how I progress in SSF. And by sticking to a set upload time, it can just be one of those things where you can just sort of hang out and be like, oh, I wonder what Tarke's been up to recently. I had a lot of fun doing that in my Battle Brothers series, and it's basically just trying to bring that energy over to Path of Exile, which should be interesting. Now, I've only just gotten into maps. I didn't push all too hard. I took lots of little breaks on the first day, but the build is sort of starting to come together. We've gone full crit now, so we are officially a Rupture Bleed build. At this point, it's just a situation of I haven't got enough crit. So that's my first immediate thing, is like getting that crit number up, 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 up. Also, I really want my Uber Lab because I don't have Uber Lab. So let's start off by just kind of briefly going over the leveling process, the problem points I've had with the build, and some of the things I'm still a little bit unsure or whatever about. So first off, I've made quite a few substantial changes to the build, all because of a ricochet. So I thought ricochet would probably be pretty good for leveling, but I worried that if I took it while leveling, I would never want to drop it. And then on one of my recent videos, someone was like, hey Tarke, I tested out the build for leveling. It's actually a really good leveler. I really recommend you take a ricochet. It really speeds up the leveling. I'm like, alright, let's give that a try. So I took ricochet, and I fell in love with ricochet. Ricochet is awesome. So if you don't know, ricochet is a node that gives you +1 chain, but also your attacks have a 30% chance to chain off of walls. So let's find some monsters. We went straight to the boss right afterwards. But it means that if you ever miss, or you're in a tight indoor area or whatever, you're still fine, because it just bounces off the wall and hits the thing anyway. It's actually really nice if we can show it here. You see how I missed and it bounced in? Now it's only 30%, so it isn't every time. But since we have a single target puncture, which is only a single arrow, it's actually really nice just having that as a little bit of backup, just to smooth out that consistency. And it just feels really good. The other thing which is nice about it is it makes running indoor maps so much more pleasant. Usually running really tight indoor maps like this on projectile builds can be quite irritating. But now I'm like, ooh, indoor map, yeah, I want to run that. It's actually very safe. So it's like here, I can purposely attack into doorways, which is something you would never normally be able to do on this kind of a build, and feel very safe, which is very good. And then for outdoor maps, it's still just +1 chain, which is excellent. Now the immediate thought is like, hang on, but doesn't chain make ensnaring arrow really awkward? It technically it can. So the way that ensnaring arrow functions, let's go for that one. The way that ensnaring arrow functions is it only applies the debuff on the last enemy it hit. So if you have pierce or chain or fork and it goes to another target, the first target hit doesn't get the debuff on it. I thought this would be more annoying, but it's actually not an issue at all. So the reason why it doesn't turn out to be an issue whatsoever is if, for example, that scenario with the boss there, and we shot into the wall, we shoot 5 arrows. So if one of them hits the wall, it will bounce off the wall and hit the boss. If there's an ad next to the boss, one of the arrows will hit the ad, then bounce onto the boss. And if there's loads of ads on one side and the boss on the other, you purposely shoot into the ads, so it bounces off the ads into the boss. So it's actually really consistent. I thought it'd be much more of a nuisance, but it turned out to be really, really easygoing. And so next up, I was like, okay, I've fallen in love with Ricochet. This is awesome. What am I dropping? And I decided to drop Wind Ward. Now, I might change that. It will also depend on the new bosses. Now, also worth noting for this series, I'm not watching anything about the new bosses. I'm going to be going into them completely blind. So that'll be something we'll be able to enjoy when I get to it. Probably a while, because I'm going quite slowly, but still, it's something we can look forward to. Depending on their arenas, if they're all stuff where I can't get the bouncers, and they haven't got the ads and stuff, then it might be a case where I respec. But for anything else, I'm keeping Ricochet. So I decided to drop Wind Ward for a couple of reasons. One, I was originally considering doing like armor scaling through either Iron Reflexes or the Grace, Determination, Defiance banner setup. And my big initial draw for going pure evasion was to get more value out of Wind Ward. So the way that Wind Ward works is every time I attack, I'm gaining stacks on my Tailwind effect. And the Wind Ward adds damage reduction, 3%, to that effect. But when I get hit, I lose all my stacks. So I was like, I don't want to be always losing my stacks, because then it will slow down my movement speed and my attack speed will feel really bad. And it's just, we want to keep that up nice and high. So we're going to have to go really heavy on the evasion. Now, armor's really good. So anything to justify doing stuff with armor is an easy sell. And Ricochet feels really good to play with, so that's an easy sell. And then also it makes the gearing smoother in a way, because it means that I'm less reliant on attack speed. So you'll see that for the most part while mapping, I'll kind of be floating around sort of 6-ish charges, 6, 7. Ooh, rejuvenating and vampiric, so he's just leeching off my, he's just leeching off my little dudes. Okay, that's fine. There you go, there we go, there we go, getting them big bleeds. That's the problem with not having high enough crit currently, is you can really tell when I'm not applying the Rupture, and then when I am applying the Rupture, it's like really noticeable. Why is there 2 of them? Oh, it's the Apparition. I don't think I get any loot from killing the Apparition, but I'll sort it. We'll stick with you. It's worth noting, I've got the Crit Strikes gem on my map clear puncture. I don't have it on my single target puncture. So if you're ever wondering why I'm throwing the GMP puncture into the single targets to try and proc the Rupture, I literally don't. I'm like convinced I don't get any extra loot from that. So I'm just going to leave you. I want my loot though. Doesn't do anything to me because I've got a lot of evasion and armor. So yeah, so in a way it kind of makes the gearing a little bit softer. I've decided to go armor and evasion. I am 1 point away from Iron Reflexes, so I might just go pure evasion. Pure armor if I feel like this new like boss content and League and everything is very heavily pushed towards Fizz. Armor's excellent, but it's not helping me against elemental damage, and I still need mitigating elemental damage, and evasion mitigates both. So I think I prefer having good evasion and good armor rather than just a load of armor, but it will depend on the kind of content I'm running. Now, this changes a few things. So obviously the trees changed a little bit, the auras have changed a little bit, the ascendancy like selections changed a little bit, and it also means the gear we're looking for is different. So now instead of wanting pure evasion pieces, we now want hybrid armor evasion pieces. So if you are playing along with this, update your loot filters respectively. Another nice thing about this though is it opens us up to running Molten Shell. That was another thing which made it an easy sell to me, is we didn't really have a good Val skill for this build. I'm not a big fan of Val Grace since they changed it. Like, I get that it gives you a chance to evade and some spell suppressions stuff, which is cool, but I'm just kind of like, maybe I'm spoiled by old Val Grace. It's probably just a case of like, it's not the Val Grace I know and love, so I feel a bit weird about it. So I might add that back in, but currently I'm only running Val Molten Shell. We want the Impale. Oh, we want the Fizz. We don't want the Impale. So yeah, so I didn't really have like a Val skill that I was super connected to, and it's just like, it's an easy shoo-in. I'm also right next to, and will eventually take Adamant, which is really good for 3 points. So for 3 points, you're getting a bunch of guard skill cooldown recovery, a bunch of armor scaling, you're getting bleed and corrupted blood. So you already get that from Steel Skin, but now you get it on Molten Shell, which gives us extra value. And it means if I want to, I can get the Determination Mana Reservation Efficiency. So I'm currently running Herald of Purity, Determination Grace, Banner, and that leaves me with just enough mana that for the most part it sort of works. You might have noticed like once or twice I went In terms of like how am I sustaining, I've got a little bit of Mana Leech on my Quiver. You can get Mana Leech on Quiver, Jewelry, and Jewels. You'll want some somewhere on this gear. I have 1 point left over here, which was, I originally had this in the build, and I was just speccing out of it. And we'll now drop that. and see if we can still... I think we're fine without it. I won't reallocate this node in case the next map feels rough, but yeah, I had to do a big respec, and that's something I'll also get into, because this tree is different to my leveling tree. My leveling tree rushes into Duelist. I'm not keeping... any shield recharge rate? No, I'm not keeping that. So that was a bit of a respec. Now, in hindsight, I still stand by it. It's much smoother in terms of leveling. But regrets are kind of at a premium this league with the passive skill tree. So it's probably better, instead of speccing down this way, to be getting Avatar of the Hunt, Heavy Draw, Deadly Draw, and Bloodletting, you're probably better off just going for a caustic arrow tree, leveling as caustic arrow until you get all your crit stuff, and then do the punch setup then. Because a caustic arrow tree can look near identical to this very easily. These nodes go there. These nodes are still scaling. This is all damage scaling. These nodes can be these nodes, and these nodes are still good. Like, it's kind of arguable which one you take. I'm going to take both eventually. So yeah, that was probably the more economical play, but oh well. Saying that though, leveling this build was an absolute breeze, and it looks like my mana is still okay. Cool, so we can reallocate that node. Excellent. So I leveled the entire way as Puncture, from level 4 all the way through to what you're seeing now, 73. I know, dizzying heights. Puncture at level 4 with Volley and Pierce. And I originally intended to have a clear setup and a single target setup, but I actually found that Puncture did enough damage through all of the acts that I didn't even need a single target setup. I only had one 4-link Puncture until I got a 5-link bow. And then that was when I used my first damaging link. Everything up until that point was just utility links. And my first damaging link was Life Tap, which I'm currently not running because I don't need it because I've got that mana leech on my quiver. But I did find that quite funny that it was such a smooth leveling process that I managed to go all the way through. I didn't actually get a single target up until Act 10, which I thought was kind of cool. The mark thing we need to talk about. So I originally intended to use the new mark on hit support. Now I've got a couple of issues with the mark on hit support. It's very expensive, which is fine. I don't actually mind the cost. My main issue with it is it's got 30% reduced mark effect, and that feels really bad. And marks last forever now, so it feels really, really bad when you're on like a map boss or like a tanky Archnemesis, or if you're on like doing actual content like real bosses, it will feel awful. So you would want to drop it and self-cast in those scenarios. So you could have a situation where maybe like for mapping you have it, and then you like take the gem out, but I really don't like gem swapping. Yeah, so at the moment I'm just self-casting. Now I don't have my Uberlab. My Uberlab gives me Mark Prolif. So when I kill enemy affected by a mark, it spreads, and the node before that also gives Mark cast speed. So it might actually feel okay to just chuck out the odd mark now and again. Now it's not something, I don't expect you to like cast it once at the start of the map and it prolifs to the whole map. But I could see a scenario like you enter a breach, you cast Mark once, that mark is there for the whole breach, or like you have an abyss, or like an expedition, like you know, league mechanics. You've played Path of Exile, right? You know how this game works. So I could actually see a scenario where actually self-casting it now and again for map clear might feel okay, and then for bosses you just chuck it on the boss and it lasts the whole fight. It feels really nice just chucking it on the boss and it lasts in the whole fight. The other thing which is very nice about running Poacher's Mark in this build is, I don't have any more bits in there, I don't have any more doodads, is it gives you a massive big chunk of guaranteed life and mana gain on hit, which means that you don't ever have that awkward scenario where like you can't leech enough. So that's very, very good. So that's why it would be nice to have like consistent uptime of it while mapping, but that's something I'm just gonna have to feel out when I get my Uber Lab, so that's something I will report back on in hopefully the next video. Sometimes SSF can be a little bit cruel with when you get your labs. What else? So I'm uncertain what I want to do with my movement skills. My movement skills, I feel a bit iffy on. I always have this issue when I play bows. I really like dash. I don't like dash since the second wind change anywhere near as much. Like, it's still good, but it doesn't quite feel right. Now, if I maybe get lucky, I might get some, like, enchants or something in SSF. There's a high likelihood that I'll get a usable enchant, because I actually don't mind farming Uberlab. I know that is a very odd mental headspace to be in, actually mildly enjoying running Uberlab. So I tend to make a habit of like, it's when I get a good pair of boots is when I do it, because they're a good boot enchants. So probably when I get my Zero Step, which I'll probably be stuck with for quite some time, I'll then make a point of like running 10 Uberlabs and seeing to like either get good helm enchants or like good boot enchants, or both ideally. And yeah, if I got an enchant for the dash, maybe I'd feel a little bit better about it. Likewise, Blink Arrow. Blink Arrow is interesting. So all the bow masteries are really good. I have the issue now where I want all the bow masteries. Like, I'm really struggling to pick which ones I want, which is excellent. This was something which irritated me a lot when I was playing traps last league, that like there was only one good trap mastery, so it wasn't an interesting system. Now, every single bow mastery I could make an argument for taking. We missed a big chunk there, but well. And that's awesome. So, if I quickly show it, once we get this loading screen. So I'm currently using Mirage Archer Duration and Accuracy Rating per green socket on equipped bow. The accuracy rating one is excellent. It means we don't need to run precision anymore. So yeah, that is amazing. And it means I'll probably want to run a 6 green clear setup, and I'll have my clear skill in my bow and my single target in the chest, just so I'm getting as much accuracy as possible. If I get really good accuracy on gear, then obviously I can mess around with that. But yeah, that accuracy rating per green socket and bow, so strong. So I'm currently running Mirage Archer Duration. The Mirage Archer Duration makes maintaining ensnaring arrow less of a headache. But then there's a very strong option in increases and reductions to projectile speed also apply to damage with bows. Now, we do get a good amount of projectile speed just base. We get 20% here, and we get 20% here. So that's just like 40% damage to 1 point, which is good. And then there's also the fact that you quite often incidentally get random projectile speed on like quivers or random bow suffixes now and again. So that's like a very attractive, like 1 point 40% damage, good. 1 point maybe 60, 80 higher, very good. Likewise, arrows gain critical strike chance as they travel further, up to 100%. Also tempting, while I currently don't have Ungol's Harmony and my crit chance is a little bit spotty. And then the Blink Arrow has 100% increased cooldown recovery, is also very tempting, because it's like, you can do some pretty nice stuff with Blink Arrow. The main thing that you need is Enhance, though. Enhance is what takes Blink Arrow to the next level. Enhance gives it a massive chunk of arrow speed, and that's when Blink Arrow feels really good. If I get my hands on an Enhance, maybe we'll just go pure Blink Arrow gamer, and depending on where my character is at that point, if my crit chance is still bad or my damage or whatever, I might even go full Blink Arrow cooldown recovery. I guess I should show off the tree, kind of show what's what and where I'm going next. You could, if you wanted to, do 3 points here instead of these points here. But this is a 5% life node, and I like evasion, so it's like, I don't get damage from projectile damage, so we save 2 skill points, but we lose a lot of evasion scaling and 5% life, so I prefer going through this way. Replenishing Remedies is a very... My camera's blocking it. Replenishing Remedies is a very attractive node for multiple reasons. So if you don't like having Mana Leech, or you don't have access to Mana Leech, you can take it for Enduring Mana Flask Sustain. I actually really like this for bossing. For bossing, I tend to do double Life Fast, triple Quicksilver on dot builds. And this is 3 Life Flasks gained every 3 seconds. And you can get even more in there. And then there's also the Pantheon, which gives 3 flask charges every 3 seconds. A big thing people have been saying is, like, what are you going to do about recovery on bosses? If I go really heavy on bosses, I might be going for that 3-pointer, and that might be how I do it. This mastery is very important to take. This is 30% increased duration on your puncture bleeds, which is important once you get Rupture, because Rupture reduces it. It's also worth noting that Puncture Bleed scales with skill effect duration. Puncture and Viper Strike are the only two ailments which scale from skill effect duration scaling. Because normally you only get increased duration from ailment scaling, but they're special. I need to pick up a 50 life mastery. I need to pick up spell suppression. I basically rushed all my crit nodes because I needed to get the crit so my build functioned, and then my life was a bit low. I'll probably go for thick skin and then get my spell suppression nodes afterwards. Just because thick skin protects me from all damage, spell suppression only protects me from spells, and I need to collect some spell suppression gear. So until I have the gear, yeah, having 20% chance to suppress spells is nice, but if you haven't got the gear to back it up, it's not a priority, if that makes sense. And then if and when I get good jewels, I put good jewels in. One thing which is worth noting about this build is it has 3 good bandit options. So I went for Alira in the end because I was like, well, have the resist early, have the extra mana sustain, and the 20 crit multi is 10 dot multi with perfect agony because we apply crit multi to damage over time at 50% of its value. Oak is actually more damage. Oak is more damage, and it gives life regen, and it gives physical mitigation. So if you don't need the resists, and you don't need the mana sustain, and you just want damage, go Oak. But obviously, 2 skill points, you know, if you have a good jewel, you'll get more damage with the 2-point jewel. But in a world where you've gotten all your jewels, you've taken all the damage nodes you have available to you, and you have enough resists, then actually, unironically, go Oak in this build. Especially true if you're playing the Gladiator version, because then it scales the bleed explosions. But anyway. So let's run a couple more maps, and we'll just sort of, like, ruminate, ponder, So, my initial goals going forward at this point is collecting spell suppression gear. I probably should show off my gear, actually. So this is my bow. It's good enough. It's literally a Harby bow off the vendor. I qualityed it up to 20. I then used the Rustic Sash recipe, which is any Rustic Sash, rare or magic, plus any bow and 1 Blacksmith Whetstone. And you get a guaranteed 54 to 64% physical damage roll. I got this. I augured it. I augured the fire damage. I felt bad. I regaled it. I hit stun duration. I felt worse. I crafted physical damage. Now, if I was really, like, if I had a lot of currency at the time, what I would have done is I would have spammed the Rustic Sash recipe until I hit good suffixes. Then regaled, ideally into a good regal, and then crafted the flat fizz. But I didn't have the currency, and I just needed something which functioned. And ideally, you want a Harby bow with maximum implicit, the 50% for that more crit chance, make a massive difference to my current crit values. But this isn't a good enough bow worth wasting it on. If I drop a new Harby with a 50% roll, I'll do the recipe again or use Essences of Contempt to guarantee the flat fizz, and I'll get a better bow that way. On my loot filter, I have Harby bows, Citadel bows, Sniper bows, Assassin bows. I will eventually trim that down as and when I get better bows, but I want a Harby as my, that's my main goal. Likewise on quivers, I have all the physical bases. Heavy, blunt, and there's one other one. Is good. I think heavy is the best one now, though. You're really just trying to get... You want damage over time multiplies what you really want on your quivers. But otherwise, you just want as much flat fizz as possible. And again, very important, that mana roll. Very, very important that you get that mana leech. That right there with those porcupines is another reason why I do like having evasion, and why I feel tankier with a mix of evasion and armor than just having loads and loads of armor. Because you just get to ignore a lot of things. You get to ignore porcupines. I can run Fizz Reflect on this build. Now, oh, I haven't got enough recovery. Oh, am I somehow... Oh, I fully gave up then, but no, we just survived. Now I'm dead to that Essence Ring. Yeah, screw you, dude. Where was I? Sorry. Now, obviously, if you had enough armor, you could run Reflect. But the cool thing about this build is we reduce our hit damage quite substantially. So Perfect Agony reduces our hit damage. And then if you run deadly ailments, that reduces your hit damage. Now, this is bad from a leech point of view, but it's very good from a reflect point of view, because it means that the hit that does eventually go through is a very small one. So that's good. Now, you can evade reflect from bow attacks, or just you can evade attacks. Ooh. That Berserker one, that's my new favorite thing. I get so happy in SSF when I see the Berserker Archnemesis mod. It's the one with the guaranteed unique. It's just joy. Oh, it's wonderful. Forgot to put my mark up. But that's another thing why I keep saying with the whole mark thing, like, I'm really bad at actually remembering to just put the mark on, so I feel like maybe I should just automate it. Yes, I'd be losing the mark effect, but then it would actually be on the enemy. But then saying that I don't currently have enough mana to pay the exorbitant mana cost. I'll save that until I have the good stuff to go with it. But yeah, so basically, I haven't really got much. Like, you saw my bow. You saw my quiver. And I know we're only in early whites, but, like, yeah, it works. I had really smooth time leveling. It maps pretty comfortably on 4 links. Yeah, it's not, like, blowing anyone away in terms of, like, the damage or anything, but, like, yeah. We had hemophilia gloves for the bleed explosions. That is one shortcoming currently. I don't know if something's happened to Betrayal, but the research missions have a lot of enemies. Like, hundreds of enemies. And my chain setup versus like 100 enemies doesn't go very far, which is always the issue with chain. Unless you're using something like Lightning Arrow, which has like an inbuilt splash effect, chain is very weak against like obscene hordes because your arrow just can't get to the targets. That's when having explosions are really nice, because the explosions then, you know, you need to kill half the pack, the rest of it just explodes. That's just something that we can fix by eventually getting hemo gloves. A couple of different ways of getting it. They're the only serpent scale gloves in the entire game, so if you just chance them, there's a high chance you go into it. I have them on my filter. I've got a tab. This will eventually fill up with just studded belts and the gauntlets, and then we'll chance through them all, and I'll save that for these daily update videos and gambling on Gwen and stuff, and hopefully, you know, good stuff happens there. But guess I'll show off the rest of my gear. It's mostly just a mixture of life, resistances, terrible boots, and some strength rolls, because I do need strength. But yeah, that's that. Would recommend it. Stay tuned. Same time tomorrow for the next update. Once we've got the Uber Lab, we can talk more about the Mark skills. Once we start going against some of the new bosses, we can talk a little bit more about some of the new Atlas stuff as well. But no, thank you very much for watching, and I will be doing usual Path of Exile content in between these updates. So if you don't want to be sitting down for a 20-30 minute video every day, don't worry, I still have you covered with shorter ones. Although the people who are listening to this now like the longer content because you stuck around for half an hour, I should have put that in the first few minutes, even if you don't like it. I'm Tarke, have a good day. Bye-bye.